Speaking of mergers, what a great segue into our next topic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I know that you are definitely the film watcher buff of the two of us. We love making films, and we've made films, been in films, but I know you love especially watching them. So to you, this has got to be really, really engaging, even more so just outside the business aspect, but even from that cinematic aspect too.
So last week, Disney, the big company, Disney, bought their quote rival studio, unquote. I feel like that, the Crips and the West Side Story. I don't know, two rival gangs, but they bought out 20th Century Fox.
Yeah, and that should be a jaw dropper right there.
Yikes.
Disney, who owns Lucasfilms, Pixar, who owns Marvel and all the Marvel universe, has bought out 20th Century Fox
For a small price of...
Was it $66 billion? Is that was the
Yes.
price point? Yep, $66 billion in assets, in also,
stock,
well, debt.
Debt, yeah. They bought out their debt, too. That was nice of them.
That's so nice of you guys. And this is supposed to take place over 2 years. There was a lot of people, kind of murmuring about it, but people were like, oh, no, that's not going to happen, whatever. We also heard that AT&T was going to buy out T-Mobile, and then Sprint was going to buy out T-Mobile, and all these other, companies buying out other companies. No, it happened. It happened just recently, within a few days, and it's going to take over 2 years for them to actually purchase out everything that Fox owns.
Which is crazy to think about, right? Like, it takes 2 years for a purchase. Like, can you imagine, like, ordering something on Amazon and, like, 2 years later it arrives?
Yeah, but that's like 2-day delivery, right? I mean, in business years, 2 years
days.
is like, 2 years are like, oh my God, this is amazing. Can we do this service for everything?
Express shipping.
It's express shipping for a business. Amazing. Also, I'd like to real quick say hi, Veggie Gamer. Thanks for joining us. Pixel Lily, Dynamite, Bacon, Prophet Gars, everyone in chat. Thank you so very much.
Now we can get another terrible Fantastic Four movie. Isn't that super, super exciting? I mean, Comcast and NBC Universal did a little merger, but Disney and Fox, that's huge. Disney owns, like you mentioned, this crap ton of stuff. Fox owns this other crap ton of stuff, and now that all lives under the same shareholders.
Mm-hmm. And of course, that not only impacts the major films that come out through 20th Century Fox, but it also impacts Fox Spotlight, which typically highlights more independent films.
Fox Searchlight Pictures.
Or Fox Searchlight Pictures, excuse me. And so now you're looking at other films such as like your future Slumdog Millionaires and other films like that garnered huge renown now under the Disney banner, which is interesting because I feel like Fox is known for their much meatier storylines. They're much more dramatic pieces, whereas Disney always tries to skirt the line of more family-friendly, more kind of kiddish. We're on Twitch, so let's put it in a game perspective. There was a single-player Star Wars game that was supposed to come out, and both EA and Disney squashed it because they said, well, it won't make enough money. One is that it was a much darker kind of look at Star Wars, because you played as a, what are they called? Basically like a Han Solo type of character, a smuggler. And so, they said, well, this is getting a little dark. And then, of course, EA looked at it and went, well, there's no multiplayer, so we can't make money. So they put the kibosh on it. So what is Disney then going to do to some of the Fox films? I mean, think about Deadpool. There was so much drama around Deadpool, and will they come out as rated R? Again, this is supposed to be kind of the anti-hero hero, and this guy is supposed to be dropping F-bombs, and there's supposed to be blood and violence and stuff, but this humor that isn't in the Marvel universe really, and that isn't in a Disney film. How is that going to impact future, for instance, Deadpool films now that it's under the banner of Disney?
Well, and you're talking about, how Disney likes its family films. They already own Mouse House and Pixar.
Mm-hmm.
And Fox owned Blue Sky Entertainment, who did things like the Ice Age franchise. So now they're going to own that too.
Oh, yeah.
So now, not only do they have all this quote-unquote adult entertainment, ooh, that sounded wrong, but they also, of course, have a huge monopoly on the other type of entertainment that also brings in a shit ton of money.
Oh yeah, I mean the market on comics and comic related goods, the market on many sci-fi type films too, even if it is based off of comics, but like Guardians of the Galaxy, Star Wars, things along that line. On kids films too, and animation. I mean, they have the market fairly well cornered. And as we mentioned too, again, anything that was under the umbrella of Fox is going to Disney. So keep that in mind. It's not just like 20th Century Fox. It is everything. Even the stocks that Fox has in Hulu and Netflix and other systems that we use every day that we don't think about being influenced by some of these major corporate entities.
And you think of Disney, right? And the brand is wholesome, right? That's you know, I think of Disney, I'm like, oh, that's cute. You know, it's family-friendly entertainment.
Oh, there's a talking rhinoceros. This is so freaking gosh darn adorable.
Bambi. But Walt Disney himself, you know, there's a lot of conflicting opinions about him as a person. But I think at best, at least from well, what do I know of him? Just things that I read and see. But at best, he was a very persuasive fella. And at worst, kind of a shark, right? I mean, he spent 2 decades trying to get the Mary Poppins rights from P.L. Travers, who wrote the book, who wrote the story, to turn it into a film. Made the film. It was the most the best grossing film of Disney in the 1960s, but the author didn't like it at all. 20 years he was on her for that. I feel like that legacy is still in his company.
Oh yeah, well, in this article, which is by The Guardian, which is a fantastic article, I definitely recommend checking it out. They talk about how, okay, well, Disney has done well by, you know, some of their franchises, and, you know, people love the ambiance, and they keep adding on more things like the Star Wars Galaxy and Hogwarts and all these other different things to help entertain people, right? And look at what they've done for Anaheim, which is where they're located in for California. You know, where they're like, well, look, they took a rural town and they turned it into a fairly big hotspot where the unemployment is one of the lowest, and Disney happens to pay some of the highest taxes in that area, so it helps to fund Anaheim. Well, in 2017, and this is mentioned in the Guardian article as well as an LA Times article this year, where they mentioned that, but the thing is with Disney, they've been making billions. Their stock market value has been around $152 billion, and they just seem to keep actually squeezing more out of the city, more than what's necessary. They keep asking them, hey, can you pay for our parking lots as we want to expand? And so have it out of your pocketbook, out of the city's pocketbook, out of the people's taxes, rather than ours, because, you know, we're bringing people in anyway. They've also gotten in trouble because most people are saying, well, heck, they've secured $866 million in incentives for film productions, real estate development, and other projects, but the town of Anaheim is not seeing it. So even though Anaheim has said, yes, or, you know, come here and build, and they have, and they've brought people in, their kind of involvement in the city itself to help maintain it and really help bring it to a flourishing city of California has basically kind of flattened out. They've flatlined. They've gotten to the point where it's like, well, we're making billions of dollars, but we'll still give you the same amount of money we're giving you like in the 80s and 90s. Like, we're really not going to increase how much we give to you because, you know, we're Disney. And so that right there has to make you look and go, well, wait a minute.
Wait a second.
You're about the families. You're about the people and entertainment and stuff, but yet you've basically taken over this city. You've kind of held them hostage in a way, saying, hey, you pay for our stuff because, you know what, the people owe us. They can pay the in tax money because we're here in the first place.
Oh, no, you misunderstand. We're about the families of the shareholders.
Right.
That's what we're about.
And so that right there makes you go, well, okay, wait a minute. So now that they own Fox, how much more of a power play do you think they're going to push into this? How much more do you think they're going to do now that they own it. And by the way, Anaheim had such bad issues with Disney, and also the LA Times did too. The LA Times had been pretty much back to back giving bad critiques of a lot of the Disney movies that were coming out. And most people would say that they were actually pretty fair. Unless you're a huge Disney fan, then, you know, you probably think it's totally unfair. And hey, that's your prerogative. But many people thought the reviews were fair for what they were, and the films just did not perform as they should have. Well, Disney banned the LA Times from coming in to review pre-releases of their films. So whenever they showed the films off to the press, they did not let the LA Times in. They banned them from it until they started making more positive critiques of their films.
Fake reviews.
Exactly. So the LA Times didn't stand for it, and many other actual publications who were still allowed to attend these events said, no, we're not going to do this. And eventually Disney collapsed in on their decision making and went, okay, all right, we'll let you guys in. So again, there's some business going on here behind the fun and the smile. And there's nothing wrong with the Disney films or what many of the cartoons portray now. But the question is how are these being utilized? That's a scary thing. And to think that now they own Fox. Now, they don't own Fox News. Let me clarify that. Fox News is becoming their own conservative entity off to the side. So they will have no association to Disney or to any of the other umbrella corporations that Disney is purchasing. Which, that would be mind-blowing to think that Disney, who also owns ABC, by the way. They own ABC, so your ABC News and any sort of TV shows under ABC is owned by Disney. So they're already in the news arena. But just think if they owned another big news corporation such as Fox News. That to me is actually scary.
You know, when I was in college many moons ago, I took a course where we were talking about the identity of people, of oneself. You know, how we view ourselves through the years, through the decades. And one of those classes, we talked about how corporations now are being viewed as people. Mm-hmm. Because even now, right, we talk about Disney, just the entity of Disney as if it's a person, and the entity of Fox, and the entity of this and that. And it's fascinating because there are real people making these decisions. You know, they're real human beings with the same worries and fears that we all have. And yet they make these decisions when, you know, looking at it on a big scale makes sense for the business. But then if you sort of pick and prod at these details, right, we start looking at these may or may not actually be benefiting the people.
Right.
And I don't understand, and this is just a broader question in general, not just for Disney and Fox, but all of these companies that are just merging into each other and acquiring. And I mean, there's a whole industry of mergers and acquisitions, right? I just don't understand how, you know, nobody in the room where these decisions are being made, there's nobody in the room that just says, hey, wait a second, guys, this is, maybe we should rethink this some way. Or, okay, let's go ahead and purchase these companies and do all this other stuff, but let's ensure that we're not total dicks. Mm-hmm. Like why is there no person in the room that says that? I don't know. Or is it that there were so many people in the room that it turns into a mob mentality? Like, I don't know. I guess I've never been in those rooms.
Yeah, I think, it could be very much an intimidation factor. Some of it is hive mind. There could be many things at play psychologically speaking. And Veggie Gamer brings up a good question too. Is should there be a law that forces companies to pay more when this happens? So, of course, with any purchase, with any assets you take in, yes, of course, you have to pay for those within your taxes. So no matter what, you ideally are paying a lot more the more assets you take in. The problem, though, is that these companies get tax breaks, or they put this money into offshore accounts, or these assets into offshore accounts. And so now the U.S. can't go after them for it because they're allowed to do it. It's legal. And a lot of the restrictions that were put onto companies for several years have slowly been peeling away quietly, either being put into very obvious blunt bills that have passed both the House and the Senate, or they've been kind of snuck in as one or two liners within a much bigger bill that involved many other things. And so it just kind of got lost in the shuffle, but got okayed, signed off, and put in. And so many of these companies can get away with this and don't really have to pay much more for it. And because there's always loopholes. There's some great streamers actually on Twitch that know much more about law than we do, such as Sheng Outlaw. Awesome dude that we'll give a shout out here to in the chat. But he even has mentioned several times that where there's a loophole, businesses will utilize them as best as possible because they want to save as much money as possible. And so he is a great resource for that. So I highly recommend is twitch.tv/Sheng, SHENG @law. But he mentions this several times, and these loopholes get abused. And, for people that know him that are small businesses, it can actually be a benefit in a way. But for much larger businesses, that just means that the 99% of us have to pay more in taxes and have to fund these big businesses' shares of what they should be investing into education and roads and fire departments and
education. What?
Yeah, no, what's that? And so, unfortunately, they get away with it. And what blows my mind and seems like such a huge irony is the fact that consumerism and this sort of corporatist sort of government that we have now is really supposed to be about nurturing business in order to help the economy, right? And then everyone's ideally supposed to prosper. We're getting the things we want, the services we want, and money is flowing in and out through everyone. So we're getting this really nice cycle, supposedly. But the irony here is the fact that these big companies, and the government's letting them do this, the big companies are purchasing out their competition. But in this type of economy, you want competition because it pushes prices. It pushes people to innovate. It pushes people to think outside the box and better understand their market. But as soon as you start buying out all your competition, then what? You don't grow. There's no innovation. There's no way to expand. What you're saying is, hey, do you want this service? Fuck you. Too bad. You're getting it on our terms. And unfortunately, to a point, that's not going to work. It's amazing because there is sort of a hive mind herd mentality where people go, okay, must buy. It's an Apple product, or it's a this product or that product.
And
so
get away. I need the first copy. No, stop. Yeah. You can't buy. I want all 5 of them.
It's like, I need to purchase this. But there is a certain point, which I think we're going to reach, where enough big businesses are going to start buying out their competition where people are going to go, no, I really don't need this item that much. You're charging too much. You're not doing enough for the people. And forget you. I'd rather back something on Kickstarter. I'd rather back something on one of these other crowdfunding websites to get more competition in, because right now I'm not getting the price I want for what I'm getting paid for in my life currently, for an hourly wage or for a salary.
It's like the food distribution problem that we were talking about in one of our past episodes, where there's enough food being made in the world right now to feed everybody and then some. But, instead of, okay, I have 5 apples and I have 4 people in the room and everyone gets an apple, I'm going to keep 4 apples and then y'all 4 fight over this 5th one. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what's happening, it feels like, right? There's all these companies and they just are buying and they have all this money, and there's like, the top 1% of like blah, blah, blah. And they have all this money, and oh, sure, they're going to open up all these businesses and hire all these people and give them money back. It's like that's not how it works.
And that's not what we're seeing with our economy currently.
Right. And you're right. If you're buying out your competition, all you're doing right there is just being like, I'm number 1. My penis is bigger than yours. What? Instead of saying, yeah, let's have a free, let's have an economy or let's allow people to innovate, to bring up new ideas to the table, to try to give people options. Mm-hmm. Like, why are all phones black? That's what I want to know. Because they used to be all sorts of different colors and shapes. The Motorola Razr, again, I'm dating myself, came in all sorts of different colors, and I was like, ooh, I want the blue one. Now you have to buy cases, and I get it. Now there's a market for cases. But I can never find the Android cases anywhere because iPhone owns everything. So it's just, yeah.
Well, as Henry Ford said, too, I will sell you, this is me bastardizing the quote, so don't take this word for word, but basically, I can give you any color car you want as long as it's black.
Right. And then you can go and pay more money to change its color.
Yeah, because it's a way of making additional money, so we can take it from you.
Or the base starts at this color, but then if you want wheels on it, and then if you want
and that's what we're getting to. That's what we're getting to with our system, where it's like, well, no shit, a car should come with wheels. What the hell are you talking about? But there are things that are now being taken away, being taken out of services, being taken out of products that used to be there all the time. And they're going, oh, well, I mean, it costs us more money, so, we didn't want to burden you with the price unless you're willing to pay for it. No, you just saw something was popular, took it off because you could charge it more as an add-on, like we see with microtransactions in video games.
Microtransactions.
And we actually have some great commentary I want to hit on real quick in chat. Veggie Gamer says, should 20th Century Fox refuse to sell? Honestly, yes. And if not, should the government have stepped in? Yes. Should the government have stepped in during the Comcast NBC acquisition? Yes. But did they? No. Why? I'm going to give you my point of view as the fact of, well, who are the people funding these people's campaigns? Over $1 million goes into a campaign, and it's all based on the money that an individual candidate has to raise. They have to raise the money, whether it's from personal finances, whether it's from donors, small donors like you and I, or like much bigger donors like businesses. And they have to constantly, most of their time, like 70% of their time, if not more, is actually spent in phone booths, calling up people to help them with their next campaign. A lot of times they miss out on voting on bills and actually get other people voting for them on certain bills because they're too busy making calls trying to raise money for their next campaign. Otherwise, they don't keep their job. I'm off my soapbox there. Dynamite TV says, let's see here, that... Whoa, chat is really going. Let's see here. I feel other companies will rise to power, piss enough people off, and the right people will rise. Hopefully, right? We are starting to see more backlash, like things with like the Mozilla case that we mentioned and several other ones in our past episodes. So only time will tell, but we need enough people pissed off and willing to stand up pissed off in order to do this. And that's the big thing, is too many people throw their hands up and give up and say, you know what am I going to do? Well, guess what? There's about 1 million other yous out there who are just as pissed off. And if they see you and you inspire them and they can inspire you, you can run together as a group and take these people out of power, right? You can run for your local government. You can run for a local seat. And then from there, start voting, incorporating bills into the system that take money out of politics, that help put more regulations on big businesses and big banks and other financial institutions, so we don't have another financial crash like we had before, and like we're actually inevitably going to have again.
Wait, are you saying that one person can make a difference?
I am, as cliche as that sounds. There are plenty of organizations and plenty of political groups out there who are starting to run their own candidates because they are sick and tired of it. I'm not going to tell you who. I'm not going to promote anyone. Do the research out there. They are out there. The biggest thing is to know that these things exist, so that way you can then take the first step forward and take action.
And I know, I know that it can be hard, right? Because we have so much crap that we're dealing with in our own lives, right? But it's always very important to take a little bit of time and try to get yourself informed. And I know many of you are, certainly. But then take that next step then. And once you are informed, exactly, support the people that align with your values. Support especially in politics, because in theory, the government does have some say in what happens. So make sure that you support the people that align with what you believe in and with what you want to see happen. Because if we do just stick our heads in the sand, and I swear this is something that somebody said to me once, they were like, well, I have so much going on, I'm just going to stick my head in the sand. I'm like, okay, but if you do that, and if millions of us do that and continue to do that, and we have kind of the bystander effect where, oh, someone else will take care of it, someone else might not take care of it, and then you're going to wake up one day and it's going to be years down the road and you say, whoa, if only I had planted that tree 20 years ago, kind of a thing.
Well, and this quote has been
mixing
very
up
popular.
all my analogies here.
This quote has been very popular, but there's been one going around. Again, I'm going to bastardize another quote, so I apologize. But
Tim Allen it.
But basically, it was saying that, first they came after the Jews, and I did nothing. Then they came after the handicapped, the disabled, and whatnot, and I did nothing. And then they came after me, but there was no one to help me because there was no one left, basically. And that's what we're going to end up coming across if we don't get more active. And you could probably say, well, I don't like politics. Politics is stupid because there's a stereotype that politics is for nerds and stupid and whatever, and it doesn't affect you. But guess what? Those games that charge $60 and want to put microtransactions, and again, because we're on Twitch, I use this example, and you're frustrated at that system, and you consider it gambling and that they should get rid of it, guess what? That's politics. Polis means people. Politics. So what impacts the people? Metropolis is the city of the people. Metropolis. So again, there's that Latin derivative, that Latin association. Politics is about what impacts us as people. Are you pissed off because you don't make enough hourly in the job that you're in? Guess what? That's politics. You don't like the cost of certain foods, of healthier foods for inner city and for urban areas? Guess what? That's politics. You don't like the price that they charge for a Dodgers game? That's freaking politics, folks. You don't like this merger between Fox and Disney, and you think that's too much? Guess what, folks? That's politics. Hi, good morning. How you doing? Nice to meet you. My name's Evin. What's yours? Again, it dumbfounds me, and I fell into that trap too, going, "Oh, politics is stupid." I was burying my head, but then I realized all the things that pissed me off in this world all surround politics. That's what it is. You don't like the healthcare system. You don't like how you don't have insurance because you have a heart murmur. Guess what? That's politics. It all comes together and all comes into politics. You can't avoid it. You don't like a certain song because a certain genre has become popular. Guess what? That's politics.
What? How's that politics?
Oh, it always is. Based on popularity, right? Supposedly the bills that get passed are based on popularity and what's acceptable. Well, if it's not accepted, why are they still being passed? And that's the things that we have to question. So that was a great question by Veggie Gamer there. Dynamite also said too that, you have the iPhone to blame. Veggie Gamer says, if only companies didn't have small penises. Well, fair enough, right? Pissing contest. Pixelate says, companies investing in short-term positions or through hiring businesses, lower wages, and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, again, we just hear the same old things happening, same old cycle. Let's see here. Anything else? A new wave of angry feminists only for the general welfare of the people. There's a lot of chat. Thank you so much, guys, for your involvement today.
And I will say that, just the comment of the feminists, I know that there's a lot of backlash too against people who say that I'm a feminist, and it's like, oh, you're putting down the men. And it's like, okay, that's not what feminism means, or that's not what it should represent. It just means, it's sort of like, Black Lives Matter. Like it's to bring awareness to something that's happening and to make it so that everybody is included, everybody can be heard, and everybody's point of view is taken into consideration, and not just one thing is up there at the top. But anyways.
Yeah. And just to go off that example too, Veggie Gamer mentions or questions, so no one cared about what happened to the Jews in the Second World War. That's not what that quote is based on. That quote is actually based on the fact that there were many Germans who did not stand up against the Nazi regime to say something, right? Whether it was out of fear or out of pride for one's country, and they just didn't see clearly at the time. And this was actually legitimately a quote that someone had said during this time, is that basically, you know what, I should have done something and I didn't. So it's not the fact that, please don't misconstrue this in that sense. It's not about saying that no one cared, but the fact is that, it's easy to turn a blind eye on something and then realize it's very serious. But it seems that with people, with many kinds of people, they don't realize how serious it is until it actually impacts them personally.
Right. Well, in the quote, I think, I think what it's trying to also illustrate is that things start out small, and each small step goes in a particular direction. And if it goes too far into that direction, all of a sudden you're at a place potentially where you're like, oh, wow, like this is not where I want it to be. But it's, and that we should take action as best as we can earlier on, right? It's like preventative care. If you catch the early stages of a cancer, you shouldn't just be like, oh, well, it's not too bad right now. I'll just wait a little bit. Maybe it'll go away. Or I'll just start taking better care of myself. The cancer has already started. And you kind of have to take different kinds of measures to stop it from going further, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And, to kind of bring it back, the thing is that, why do we bring this up when it comes to this merger? Like, what's the big deal? It's just film, right? Well, again, it hits the economy, it hits businesses overall, and it also hits the arts. So from a business perspective, you have someone who owns a huge chunk of what we see and what we take in as entertainment. And they become the basically end-all be-all filter of what is considered cinema, of what is considered something that we want to watch and enjoy. So now we're all being fed basically really the same message. So it's all the same messaging, and it's nothing really new. And, also from an artistic point of view, cinema is about storytelling, just as theater is, just as dance is, just as music is. And when you have one filter, one kind of hive mind, you're not pushing that artistic realm to its full capacity. And you're not really challenging the status quo because you have become the status quo. And I think that's one of the biggest concerns for artists, at least, especially, is the fact of, well, are certain films going to really ever see the light of day? Will it make it harder for the independent filmmaker to actually get their content seen if they have to go through Disney for everything because they own everything?
Well, it's already hard enough to do an independent film nowadays. I feel like, at least now, independent film just means, oh, your budget's under $1 million, as opposed to the truly independent filmmaker in any case. And now, even that potentially might be going away.
Exactly. And so, only time will tell with this, as per many of our other articles, where it's like, it's hard to really say. We could say personal beliefs all day, but in the end, we're not fortune tellers. We can't tell the big impact overall. We can definitely look at, past history of large mergers and how they've not worked and how they have controlled an economy and things had to change and government had to step in. And that's why we had so many restrictions in place originally before they slowly were peeled away once again. And so, again, hard to say where this will go, but we will feel an impact of it. They will control pricing more so for films. They will control messaging of films so far, and especially films that you've already learned and loved and have watched, such as, like, let's say Deadpool, for instance, to be a more recent hit film. How will this be impacted under the umbrella of Disney? And how will things change? And again, you could say for the better, but it could also be for the worse too. And, as we've said, Disney itself as a company has not always been quite on the up and up, which I know many Disney fans, again, don't like to hear that, but it is true. We have the proof in many of these articles. So hopefully it goes well. I mean, if anything, I personally hope the government does step in, but they won't. But I hope that something does happen where we go, okay, you know what? Enough's enough. If anything, more people rise up and say, these mergers have to stop. This is just too much.